Elias is 28, sitting at his drafting table at 11 at night, watching a client invoice sit unopened for the fourth week in a row. He draws floor plans for a living, and the money that pays for his life comes in floods and droughts. A fat check in March, silence through April, 3 invoices landing on the same Tuesday in May. Every dollar in his checking account already has a job before it even arrives. Rent. Groceries. The gap between now and whenever the next payment shows up. There is no line item in his budget for a future that still feels theoretical. Tonight, that changes. He opens his bank's app and sets up something small, and to him, genuinely frightening. $160, leaving his checking account every other Friday, routing straight into a mid-cap ETF. $346 a month. It doesn't feel like the start of an investing career. It feels like volunteering to hold his breath underwater, on purpose, in a life that already feels like it's running out of air. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he's already doing the math on which bill he'll come up short on if a tax payment lands wrong. He sets up the transfer anyway. For the first few weeks, it's almost fun. He checks the account most days. He watches the number tick upward with each transfer, and in his head, he's already sketching the mountain this is going to become. Then month 5 arrives, and the mountain isn't there. The balance sits at $1,750. The market has gone sideways for most of that stretch, and after a $12 annual account fee, his purchasing power is almost exactly what he put in. Nothing has multiplied. Nothing has compounded. It's just sitting there, behind a password, like a bag he packed for a trip that keeps getting postponed. He starts to resent the withdrawals. Every other Friday, $160 disappears from an account he actually needs and reappears in an account that seems to be doing nothing at all. Fast forward to year 3. The broader market takes an ugly correction, 14% over one long, volatile summer. And Elias isn't thinking about index funds. He's standing under the flickering fluorescent lights of an auto repair shop, staring at an estimate for $1,840 to replace the timing chain and water pump on his 2011 Hyundai. He pulls out his phone right there in the waiting room and checks the brokerage app. Over 3 years, he has sacrificed $12,456 of his own money. Skipped trips, cheaper groceries, a running tally of small denials he barely let himself notice. The balance, after the correction, reads $11,120. He put in over $12,000. He has, on paper, about $11,000. This is the exact moment that breaks most people who try this. Elias isn't thinking about long-term averages or historical recoveries. He's thinking that he gave up 3 years of comfort to lose $1,300, and the amount sitting untouched in that account is almost precisely what's written on the repair bill in front of him. His thumb hovers over the transfer screen. He wants to pull the money, pay the mechanic, and call the whole experiment a mistake he caught early enough. Instead, he pays with a credit card, closes the app, and doesn't check the balance again for a month. Here's what's actually happening beneath the surface of that number. Compound interest gets taught as a snowball rolling down a hill, gathering size with every rotation. Nobody mentions that for the first 5 years or so, that snowball is roughly the size of a marble. Roll a marble through snow and you don't get an avalanche. You get a slightly wet marble. A small percentage, applied to a small amount of money, produces a small amount of money. That's not a flaw in the system. That's just what small numbers do when you multiply them. The actual purpose of those early years isn't accumulation. It's conditioning. It's teaching a nervous system that treats every dollar like an emergency fund, how to watch money disappear into an account and leave it there anyway. Elias isn't building a portfolio yet. He's building the one skill that makes a portfolio possible later, the ability to ignore his own money. Fast forward again, year 11. Elias is 39, and the account crosses $72,000. Something in the math quietly flips. At a historical average return of around 8%, the portfolio itself is now generating roughly $5,700 a year, just from existing, just from sitting there. Elias is contributing $4,152 a year. For the first time since he set up that automated transfer, the money he already has is working harder than the money he's still putting in. Jump to year 25. Elias is 53. Over that quarter century, he has manually put in $103,800 of his own money, one paycheck at a time. The account in front of him reads $324,500. Subtract one from the other, and $220,700 remains. Money he never earned, never budgeted, never once transferred with his own 2 hands. He worked for $103,000. The market worked for 220,000. And the market never once had a bad month at the drafting table. Now run the alternate version. Imagine a 28-year-old Elias who decided to wait, who told himself he'd start this exact habit once he felt financially secure, once the freelance income steadied out, once 35 arrived and things made more sense. Same $160 every other Friday. Same habit, just 7 years later, running for 18 years instead of 25. That account tops out around $166,000. Waiting didn't just cost him the roughly $29,000 he never got around to investing. It cost him $158,500 in equity that never had the time to exist. None of this math is in dispute. Compound growth does what it does on a spreadsheet every single time. But nobody lives on a spreadsheet. Pulling $346 a month out of a budget that's already stretched thin has a real cost, paid in the present tense, in stress, in skipped nights out, in the low hum of always feeling slightly behind. If someone is carrying a $9,000 credit card balance at 24% interest, or skipping dental work to fund a brokerage account, this same habit stops looking like discipline and starts looking like self-harm with extra steps. There's a real difference between deferring comfort and dismantling your own foundation to do it. What the math actually offers is a trade. Years of a marble that looks like it's doing nothing, in exchange for decades that eventually take care of themselves. The market doesn't promise a return. It only promises that time is going to pass either way. Whether today's dollars get spent or invested is the only part anyone actually controls. Money problems usually aren't complicated. They're just never explained properly. That's what this channel does. If that helped, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.